In 2018, in the icy waters of northern Canada, a group of fishermen found themselves facing an unexpected and distressing situation. As they sailed across the frozen expanse on their small boat, their eyes caught sight of something unusual on the distant horizon: a polar bear, caught in an entanglement of fishing nets. The massive animal was struggling desperately, its paws flailing in the air, trying to free itself from the web of lines that had ensnared its body. The fishermen, seasoned Arctic veterans, had witnessed the occasional polar bear before, but this was different. This bear wasn't hunting or roaming freely, it was in trouble. The fishermen noticed that its fur was matted with ice, and its movements were sluggish as it tried to break free. The netting was wrapped around its neck, its front limbs, and parts of its back. It had likely been struggling for hours, perhaps longer, exhausting itself in the process. The men knew the bear was in a perilous situation, and its chances of survival would be slim without immediate intervention. Faced with the dilemma of whether to intervene or leave nature to run its course, the fishermen were torn. These men had spent their entire lives in the harsh Arctic environment, accustomed to handling unpredictable wildlife encounters. A polar bear, even one in distress, could still be dangerous, and approaching it too closely could lead to a fatal attack. Despite the risks, their compassion outweighed their fears. The fishermen understood that the netting, likely discarded by fishing vessels in the area, was an unnatural threat to the bear, and they had the ability to help. They also knew that leaving the bear trapped in the nets would almost certainly result in its death, either from suffocation, starvation, or predation by other animals. They couldn't walk away. The decision was made: they would attempt to rescue the bear. The crew quickly made plans to approach the bear. They needed to be strategic and careful. The boat they were on was a small fishing vessel, not a rescue craft, and they had no special equipment designed for bear recovery. However, the men were used to improvising in challenging situations. They decided to use a long pole with a hook, hoping they could use it to carefully detach the netting from the bear's body. With a gentle nudge of the boat, they slowly and steadily maneuvered closer to the trapped bear. The polar bear, noticing their approach, let out a low, guttural growl. Its eyes, wide and fearful, darted between the fishermen and the tangled mess of fishing lines. Though clearly frightened, the bear seemed to realize that the fishermen weren't a direct threat. After a tense few moments, the bear stopped thrashing and allowed the men to come nearer. The fishermen carefully extended the hooked pole towards the bear, trying to avoid startling it. They worked quickly but deliberately, attempting to get close enough to cut away the fishing net without harming the bear. At first, the bear pulled back in alarm as the men neared. The tension was palpable, with everyone on edge, aware of how dangerous the situation could quickly become. But as the men gently tugged at the netting, the bear began to calm, allowing the crew to get closer. The pole was used to pull at the lines that bound the bear, but it was clear that a more hands-on approach was necessary to finish the job. One fisherman, showing immense bravery, carefully leaned over the edge of the boat to cut away the tougher sections of netting. The rescue operation turned into a long, grueling process. Every time the bear's struggles subsided, a new challenge arose. The ice around them kept shifting, causing the boat to drift unpredictably. The men had to carefully adjust their position, keeping the boat close enough to the bear without spooking it. Every movement had to be calculated. Too much motion, and the bear might panic. Hours passed as the fishermen carefully worked their way through the tangle of nets. The bear was growing more cooperative as each layer of the netting was removed. It was clear that the bear was exhausted. The previously frantic thrashing had slowed, and the men could see the bear's ribs clearly beneath its thick coat of fur. The signs of malnourishment were evident. This bear had likely been stranded for some time, struggling to find enough food. With great patience, the crew used knives to carefully slice through the remaining sections of the fishing nets. The netting had wrapped tightly around the bear's body, causing deep abrasions to its fur and skin. The men tried to be as gentle as possible, understanding that this bear had endured immense pain and suffering for far too long. As the final pieces of the net were cut away, the bear's body finally relaxed. It seemed to sense that its struggle was over. The fishermen held their breath as the bear took a few tentative steps, testing its strength. For a few seconds, it seemed disoriented, but then, slowly, it started to move more confidently. It looked back at the men with a quiet intensity, its eyes showing a mixture of curiosity and gratitude. With a final glance at the group, the polar bear turned and moved toward the ice floe, making its way back to the open sea. It moved slowly at first, likely feeling the aftereffects of its entanglement, but soon it regained its rhythm. The fishermen watched in awe as the bear disappeared into the vast expanse of the Arctic waters, its silhouette growing smaller and smaller until it was just a speck against the icy horizon. The crew stood there, breathless with relief and satisfaction, knowing they had just helped save a life. Once the bear was safely on its way, the fishermen returned to their vessel, each man reflecting on what had just transpired. They had always been aware of the harshness of life in the Arctic, but this experience was different. It wasn't just a chance encounter, it was a direct action that had saved a life. The team's emotions were a mixture of pride, awe, and humility. The event made national news, drawing attention to the growing issue of wildlife entanglement in discarded fishing nets. Environmental groups seized upon the rescue to highlight the ongoing threat that human activity posed to marine and Arctic life. The fishermen were praised for their quick thinking and bravery, but they remained humble. For them, it wasn't about recognition, it was about doing what was right. The rescue had a profound impact on the local community and conservation efforts in the region. News outlets and social media picked up the story, leading to widespread awareness about the dangers of marine pollution. Environmental organizations used the incident to push for better regulations on waste management and stricter controls on fishing gear disposal in the Arctic. The fishermen's story sparked a larger movement towards safer practices in Arctic fisheries, encouraging more sustainable fishing methods and better waste management protocols. The event also underscored the necessity of proactive rescue efforts for animals in distress, urging the fishing community to take a more active role in protecting wildlife. The bear's rescue was not just a one-time event, it became part of a larger dialogue about the interconnectedness of humans and wildlife. It reminded everyone that, in an increasingly fragile world, it was our responsibility to protect and preserve the creatures that share our planet.